Okay, good morning, good day, and welcome to another Velvet Revolution, episode 8, and H is the letter. So, welcome, Dave Noble. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm feeling a little bit I feel really good actually. I'm always trying to figure out, what am I feeling?
Mm,
But yeah, I'm feeling really good. Yeah, life is good. Life is good. I just want to quickly land this before I ask how you are. How are you first, and then I'll land on it. How are you?
I am good. Yeah. I had 12 hours of sleep on Friday night, which was quite clearly needed. I'm never quite sure why I feel so tired all the time, but I've woken up on this day feeling very refreshed and replenished. And yeah, had a really lovely day yesterday. Really, some really nourishing, wholesome, helpful conversations with people. And yeah, feeling good today. Feeling good.
Always helps.
Mm.
Nice to hear. Good to hear it. So what I was going to say was H
Yep.
was I was going to call him a character. Maybe he was a character.
Well, wasn't he a member of
Yeah, that's
Steps?
that's where I was going with it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, whatever happened to him? This
They're reformed, aren't they? And they're all yeah.
Oh, okay. Good to hear.
Yep. They're looking as healthy as ever.
Yeah, can't beat a bit of Steps. I couldn't name one of their songs. Okay, right, so let's get into it. So,
Tragedy.
is it
Yeah.
a cover? They did a cover of Tragedy,
Yeah.
did they? There you
Mm.
go. Let's move on from H from Steps.
Okay. All right. We'll leave them behind.
Love you, H. Okay, so we're on H. I've got the list, and it's my turn to pick, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to read them out. So
Okay.
we've got so far on the list honest. Yeah, is this right? Hang on a minute. Let me just check. Yeah. Okay, right. So honest, humility, hateful, hope, hopeless, hypersensitive,
Mm-hmm.
happiness, helpful, hurtful, hypercritical. Oh, it's two that I want to do, and I'm not sure which one.
Do you
Have you
want to
got?
put the two out there and then
Yeah, they're the hypers.
the hypers?
Yeah, hypersensitive and hypercritical.
Hmm. I mean, they could fall into to the same sort of remit,
Yeah,
couldn't they?
I think they're dovetailed a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, eeny meeny, mm, hypersensitive.
Okay.
There we go. Boom.
Done.
So, you all right with this?
Yeah. What? Why? I'm going to ask you why the hypers. What pulled those out?
I like the word. I like how it sounds. It's like supersonic or something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It sounds like it's got some oomph to it. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know. It's just it's where how I'm feeling today. Feeling not that I'm feeling hypersensitive, or do I? Let's have a think about this. Can I be hypersensitive? Absolutely. My God, yeah. Shall I get into it?
Yeah. Please do.
Or hypercritical? Maybe we're going to work with these two.
Okay.
It's dovetailed. Are they interlinked? Don't know. Let's figure it out. Hypersensitive. I mean, what's the hyper part, do you reckon?
That to me suggests like a level of extremism, as you said. Like there's a real intensity to it.
Like double sensitive.
Like double, like you're not just sensitive, you're hypersensitive.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
you're off the chart sensitive. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my god, you've just reacted and you're so touchy about what I've just said and just calm down.
It's like I'm linking it to it's like saying, oh no, I can't, this is inappropriate. Oh, fuck it. It's like saying instead of just saying fucker, it's like saying fucker.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I did that. I tried
I don't know why you've decided now to stop swearing. as if as if you
to
haven't said anything.
I don't know. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, so hypersensitive, yeah, for me, it feels, it's got some oomph to it. So it's not just sensitive. Stop being so sensitive, right?
Yeah.
So for us guys, especially, this is a good one.
Mhm.
Okay, and I feel like in a culture that we're in at the moment, this is a good one
Yeah. Yeah.
because it feels to me, I don't know about you, but like there's a lot of hypersensitivity rippling through life at the moment.
Yeah. I've literally had a conversation about it this week, about how the moment we label something, the moment we give it a language. So I mean, we've talked about this program a number of times, but the adolescence program and the whole incel sort of idea. And we were talking about a situation at school this week where two young people had been in a relationship, and it's there's some rumors spreading around it, as teenagers do, and it all got a bit wrong. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
And the uh the idea that there'd been some inappropriateness or there'd been some manipulation was out there, and automatically now we lean into this language of, oh well, it's the male incel, it's that sort of injustice that young men are feeling, that women owe them something, and
Mm-hmm.
there's also another side to that, which could be it's two young people who have no idea how to conduct a relationship yet, working out what it is to conduct a relationship. Now, if we take that as a learning opportunity, then both those young people can come out of that
Mm-hmm.
stronger.
Yeah.
Or we can label and we can say, oh, there's been some real injustice there, and there's been something really, really wrong that's happened. And one of these people now has to be punished and has to be labeled. And I feel that's where we're at this moment, as we sort of label things more and more and pigeonhole
Yeah.
people into, right, this is what you are. And
Yeah.
there's no room for growth. There's no room for learning. There's no room for, once you've had that label or that word put on you, especially with the way that social media works for young people, it's like it's there. It's almost like that's you can't escape that now.
Mm.
That's you, and you're written in stone. What you're going to be. Um, yeah. So that's, sorry, I've just gone on one there because that
That's all right.
that sort of hypersensitivity to language that we are now throwing around
Yeah.
and labeling people with, and that's it. That they're stuck with that. There's no room. There's no space for that person then to change and
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you've, and this is okay. Don't apologize. I mean, you're bringing the hype.
Mm.
um, but I think I'm sure this feels familiar. What we're saying,
Mm.
right? So, um, what you said about, is it possibly two young people that are just trying to figure out and coordinate, a relationship with a very young mind,
Yeah.
not yet fully developed emotions
Yeah.
and depth of, range of ability to be able to do that, right? Now for me, you're talking, what age is that roughly? Like 12, 13, 14,
Yeah. Yeah. 14,
roughly?
15,
I
probably the older
mean,
one,
yeah.
older age group. Yeah.
Now for me, I relate to that,
Mm.
not just from that time in my life. I relate to that.
Yeah.
I still, and I'm gonna put my hand up here, like, and I'm not gonna pull any illusion of like me being like, got my master's degree in intimacy and relationships. I really struggle with relationships to the other, not so much in friendship, because for me that's safer.
Yeah.
But when there's affairs of the heart in a, traditional sense of romance,
Mm.
I do struggle. Oh, I'm the first to admit that. I do. I struggle. I've not got it completely dialed. Never. I don't think I'll ever have it completely dialed. Now, I'm suspicious of anyone who presents that they have,
Yeah.
if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love anyone that's listening, if you've got it dialed, drop us a little line. Tell us how so. Give us some tips.
Mhm.
What's the magic formula? And I'll I'll look into that and I'll embrace it and I'll
Mm.
apply some of it. Look, I'm I'm not a complete imbecile. I don't know if that's the appropriate word I'm using. Used to be, past tense, act one.
Mhm.
Act two, recovery, self-discovery, self-examination. I always go into this. Sorry if I'm boring anyone, but we are, after all, doing an A to Z of human emotion and an exploration of that stuff and how we react to it. So it's relevant every single time, in my opinion. That's what we're doing. We're introspecting, we're unpacking, we're exploring, seeing what comes out of it. So, act two, for me, is learning about this sort of playing field of emotions that I was really ill equipped, like them young people like a lot of young people. I never really. So yeah, and then act three is, in my opinion, living it, right? Living what I've discovered. But even then, I've not got it dialed. It's like a guitarist, right? They might get to a point where they're good. They're skilled at what they do, a lot more so than when they first picked the guitar up and made a racket out of it. But if a guitarist says, "I've completely mastered the guitar," then that's just sheer arrogance.
Yep.
Because do you ever really truly master the guitar no matter how good you are? You're always learning.
Mhm.
And you don't always get it right. Sometimes you can do a bum note, and sometimes it's going to be out of tune, and you're going
Yep.
to be playing out of tune. So, um, I just looked up the word hyper. Do you know what the word hyper means?
Off the top of my head.
Because they haven't got hypersensitive or hypercritical in the dictionary. Don't know why I always go to the dictionary for this. They've got hyperactive, abnormally or extremely active, abnormally or extremely active. So hyper in the dictionary quite simply means full of nervous energy.
Wow, okay.
Full of nervous energy. So if you're hyper, you're full of nervous energy apparently.
And also, when you just mentioned the hyperactivity, that was the one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That it's abnormal,
Mhm.
that there is an abnormality to you if you're hypersensitive.
What's normal?
Exactly. So where does that extreme sensitivity come from?
Mm.
Where is that? How has that landed within you? And I would argue that I'm almost the opposite. I don't know what the opposite of hyper is. There must be
Um,
a dead,
I was go I was gonna say,
numb.
yeah, yeah, something like that. Opposite of hyper would be, um, I don't know. Anyone? Anyone got any ideas on that?
Because I think I learned at an early age that emotions weren't a good thing to be that aware of.
Hang on,
So
say that again. Sorry, I totally drifted then. Say that again so I can.
I think that I learned that emotions weren't particularly healthy, that they weren't a good thing to be aware of. I
Why?
think
Can I ask you why?
because I think it was easier to be neutral, and I
Why?
think
Can I ask you why again? Sorry.
yeah,
So
no,
I
because
understand.
because because exploring them was difficult, because exploring them wasn't an easy thing. And to work out why you were sad or why you were angry or why you were happy
Mhm.
wasn't just wasn't a conversation that was relevant,
Or
or
or fostered maybe?
yeah,
I
or nurtured. Yeah, I
mm.
think that, yeah, I think that yeah, I think that's the right way of putting it. I think it was the reward for me as growing up was to be okay, and if I was okay, then that was good. That was where I got my recognition, and and I got validated. So I think it is a place where extreme emotions, hypersensitivity, and there were definitely moments as a kid. I know there were moments where I got quite hysterical, and I mean, there's some things. This is, I mean, this is, yeah. I'm gonna say this one because it is
You
valid.
sure?
Yeah.
Sure?
So, do you remember the AIDS commercial? You remember the first AIDS commercial in the 80s with the big headstone or the iceberg that came out of the water, and it was like the scariest advert in the world.
Vaguely. Vaguely.
And I remember, it was, I think it was late 80s. I don't know exactly what the date was. So what was I? I was probably about 10 or 12, and I remember this advert coming on late at night, and late at night. I was probably about 8 o'clock because I was watching TV with my folks, and it absolutely freaked me out, absolutely destroyed me. And
Right.
bearing in mind, as a 12-year-old, I was not sexually active, and there was no way I wasn't taking heroin. There was no way that I could have contracted AIDS at that point. I remember having a complete meltdown as a kid, absolutely paranoid, like not sleeping, like crying, just like coming down, and my parents were just like, "No, come on, you're just being ridiculous. Go back to bed."
Mhm.
And so I know there were moments where I got absolutely abnormally abnormally, I can't say it, abnormally emotional.
Mhm.
Like there was a hypersensitivity to what I was doing there. And why? Well, like just as a kid, it was like, I can't, like this is dreadful. I'm gonna die. This is, and that there was an extremism there to my emotions.
Mm.
And I can't remember being any sort of validation as to why. Actually, the thing was really scary. And if you talk to a lot of people now that do remember that advert, it's like that was a dark, dark advert. It was designed to scare. It was
Mhm.
designed to terrify people. And you see films and documentaries about that time, and how homosexuality was treated, and
Mm.
it was seen as such a dirty sort of virus, and it was people were saying that it was deserved, and it was some horrible, horrific things said at that time around it. So the whole advert had that, I think, wrapped up in it. I think there was some real darkness to how it had been made. And I think there was a validity there for it to be discussed,
Mm.
because I'd seen it. It was on at a time. I don't know. It must have been after Watershed. It must have been after 9.
You would have thought so.
Yeah. So, maybe I'd stayed up. I used to love MASH. I was always my goal as a kid to stay up to past 9 and watch MASH on a Wednesday. But there were no adverts on BBC Two, so I can't remember what I was watching. Anyway, but I think we don't validate those emotions. I don't think my emotions were validated at that point.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
don't think anyone sat down with me and went, "Yeah, that's a really scary advert. You have every right to feel scared because
Yeah.
that's what they were trying to do to you."
Yeah. So what's come up for me is, um, you're describing a TV commercial that you might see for 30 seconds or whatever,
Yeah,
like, what, on occasion? Like, you might have seen it once or
yeah,
twice or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Now you think modern day young people. How old was you when that happened? Say 12, you said? Something like that?
Yeah, I reckon around
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Now if you've got any parents here, if you've got a young if you've got a 12-year-old or anyone around that age, if they've got a computer device in their hand, aka smartphone, right? Are you sure you know what they're looking at? Right? Because those adverts that you saw, what, once, twice, and it affected you, and you're talking about it now, yeah? All these
Yeah.
years later. And is it fair to say it kind of had a bit of an effect on you?
Yeah,
You
yeah, as I
you're re
said, I was that night, I did
Yeah,
not sleep, and
yeah.
I was crying for a lot of time.
And you're recalling it now, right?
Yeah,
So it's very prevalent in your mind. You felt compelled to bring this up because
yeah.
we're talking about hypersensitivity. So it's obviously had a hyper reactive
Mm,
um effect on you, maybe,
yeah.
if that's the right word. I don't even know
Mm,
if I'm using the right dialogue there. Um, so going back to the 12-year-old with the phone and all of that stuff that's coming into their phone every day, every second
mm,
they're on that phone. Are you vetting that stuff? Are you aware of what adverts, what content your kids are watching? Yeah. And you wonder why
yeah.
they're freaking hypersensitive and self-critical, hypersensitive, hyper self-critical
Mm,
and all that stuff. And correct me if I'm wrong if they're not, but I've been around enough young people to know that they're hypersensitive and hyper self-critical,
yeah.
right? And that's just young people. I'm so hypersensitive to this stuff as well, still,
Mhm.
and I'm quite a sensitive little princess. Always have been, always was, always will be. I'm fragile. I'm a precious. Someone said to me once, right? You got to see yourself. You're like a precious stone. Yeah, like
Mhm.
a beautiful, beautiful, magnificent, precious stone. Right? Because we are, all of us.
Yeah.
Even if you don't see it or you don't feel it, you are. Right? And I hope one day you realize that and you look after that precious stone because it's beautiful and it's worthy of your your love, right? I'll just use that word because that's what it is, right?
Mm,
And your attention and your dedication to look after it because you're worth it.
mhm.
It sounds so cliche, but it's true. And you know, if we are that, if you can just sort of get it into your sort of consciousness that you are that precious stone, right? Just even if you don't feel like you're worth it and you don't believe that, you know, you are of that value, then just pretend for a moment that you can be one day, right? And that it is for you and it is available. You've just got to access it, right? And it requires a little bit of dedication and some heart and a little bit of digging and some care, right? Doesn't it make sense to protect that precious stone
Mhm.
from getting dirty, from getting exposed to, you know, pollution, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
the toxins that will erode it.
Mhm.
So, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Like,
it's about self-worth and self-value, isn't it?
yeah. And the hypersensitivity, when you feel like that, it's really hard to see, the hypersensitivity. I really do believe that the hyper critical mindset does play a role. There's some self sabotage in there as well.
Yeah.
Um, Low self worth, low self esteem. When you're hypersensitive, you don't just feel the pain of what you feel consumed by yourself and overwhelmed by that. You feel the pain of people around you sometimes, especially if you're a young person and you're living in a house where there's maybe some confusion and then it's hostile, volatile, whatever you want to call it. Where it's quite, you know, it's not a safe space. That
Yeah.
hypersensitivity um, is disabilitating, not disabilitating. Is that the right word? Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
disabilitating to someone that's hypersensitive. It will take you out. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to find an example of what you shared about, that advert that you watched. I mean, the only thing that came to my mind was there's loads of stuff in there. I'm trying to think of one, but the only thing I keep thinking and going back to is when I watched Jaws for the first time. And I was on my sofa, and I remember my feet soon came off of they were so my feet were dangling over the sofa, and then sort of, once Jaws entered into the film, that was
Mhm.
it. My feet were up onto the sofa.
Mhm.
But then that's just fear, but
Yeah.
is fear a key component to hypersensitivity? It's gotta be.
Yeah. I mean, the fear, anxiety,
Yeah, yeah.
all of that has got to be
All
feeding
consume
into, yeah, feeding
all
into
consume
you,
Yeah.
and your body is taking that on,
Mm.
and how it then comes out. I mean, I've had adults before tell me, you were a very sensitive child, and I think, that I think that hypersensitivity, that reaction to something that is quite extreme, and where that sits and how you grow up with that,
Mm.
I think I learned to sort of bury it and
Mhm.
not even understand that that things were having that impact on me.
Mm.
I don't think it was till, I suffered from anxiety a lot throughout my late teens, 20s, probably into my 30s, where I'd have really debilitating anxiety attacks. And, but that was it. I think everything else, I was okay, if that makes sense. Does that, like I
Yeah.
sort of lived my life in this idea that I'm okay,
Mm.
but I get anxiety,
Mm.
and not really thinking about how much, where that anxiety was coming from, where it was. I did various therapies to try and sort of get it under control, and it mainly lands now in flying. Like, I cannot fly. Absolutely, I just go to pieces.
Ye
Um,
I've got a tip for you for that.
okay. um, and yeah, I think for a large part of my adult life, I wasn't conscious
Mm.
of what was happening
Mhm.
with all this emotion, with all this hypersensitivity that I had maybe as a kid,
Mm.
where I'd have moments of extreme sort of, terror and fear.
Mhm.
Um, I'd learned to
Pa
sort of
pa
bury that.
panic attacks?
Yeah, I think they were, as a kid, that's probably what they were. I would be sort of literally
Mhm.
uh hyperventilate. When kids get so uh yeah, yeah, I'm crying so much that I'm like, I just can't, you can't control it. Sobbing to that point where you can't almost breathe.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I think that, in a way, as a kid, is healthier because you're getting it out. It's coming out of you. I think
Yeah.
as an adult, I was like, nope, I'm just gonna bury all that. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna have these extreme moments of emotion.
Mhm. So, um, the somatic, um, which my understanding somatic is, all things within the body.
Mhm.
Experience, you've got psycho, you know,
Mhm.
thought, process, psychosomatic. Excuse me. Um, what do we do with the psychosomatic part of our experience? Like
Mhm.
what you just described. You know, our stories are pretty similar, very different, but there's a lot of similarities of how we mapped it all out and, you know, survived that, got through those formative years of being very hypersensitive, hyper self-critical. Um, all-encompassing fear-induced anxiety,
Mhm.
yeah, overwhelm, terror at times,
Yeah.
um, confusion. There's so much in there. It's a real soup of emotion when we're talking about this stuff. And I think it's really relevant, really on point with where we're at. From what I'm looking around anyway, unless you're not and you've got everything regulated and you're dialed into the stuff that I know I'm dialed into now, which can really dissolve all of this stuff, and it's all about processing. What do we do with that psychosomatic stuff that we're carrying around? The thoughts and the triggers and the memories and the ghosts of our experience that
Mhm.
center in our mind that we can regurgitate and play over and over as a worn out story that's not true. And the kind of like, and I always say it's almost like a fiery venom running through my veins,
Mhm.
and it's in my bones, it's in my core of my body. Um, I say is, I say now it's like residual because I've done a lot of work around this stuff and I've purged in many ways. What do we do with that nervous tension in our body? PTSD, you could
Yeah.
call it PTSD. I think that's more of a mainstream term for it, maybe. Um, you know, the animal kingdom are the masters of it, right?
Mm.
Because they are, right? And so if you watch any animal, or whether it's on a documentary or you're actually somewhere where you're able to watch animals deal with the traumas that they have to deal with, they shake shit out, man. They do. They shake it off,
Is that your
right?
tip for my fear of flying? Is to shake it off?
Yeah. So when you're in the it's no, it's bringing you it's getting your body, yeah, I mean, shake it off might be something you can do, but it's
Mhm.
metaphorically speaking, it's shaking it off, shaking it out, right? Dispersing, regulating, bringing your body into a place where it feels relaxed, safe, held. Um, I believe hypersensitivity starts in the mind, maybe, sometimes, partially, right? It's a trigger, maybe,
Yeah, it's really
right?
interesting. Do the emotions start as a feeling in a sensation in your body,
Yeah,
or do they start as a chemical? I think it is a chemical from your
yeah.
brain.
Well, so think about music,
Mhm.
right? How many times have you, and people listening might relate, well, surely, right? How many times have you listened to a song? So it's the sound sensory experience,
Mhm.
right? And suddenly it's triggered suddenly you feel either really sad, there's a deep sense of sorrow,
Mhm.
there's this immense sense of joy, or all any other emotion you can think of can be induced by that experience of connecting to that sound wave,
Yeah.
right? And then visually, like how many times have you seen something? Could be a human being that you haven't seen, or maybe an ex-lover, or an old friend, and you've had this instant overwhelm sensory experience, whether it's again joy or fear or anger or sorrow or whatever. Or how many times have you felt something, touched something? I don't know what, I'm trying to think of something that you could touch, where you suddenly had this sensory experience, which is triggered again what I'm talking about.
All I can think of is I remember reading an article about people with pets and actually having stroking a pet was soothing
Yeah,
to your core,
yeah, yeah,
to actually sit there with an animal and just stroke it and share
yeah.
that experience. I guess it's the same as cuddling up with someone on the sofa, isn't it? And just holding
Yeah,
someone. And they say if you're with someone, your heartbeats or your breath
yeah, yeah,
sync up.
exactly that. Yeah, my cat Rupert, he loves to lie on my chest, man, and he's
Mm,
he's totally getting locked into my heartbeat. You know, it's beautiful, man, and it's so calming for me and him.
mm.
You know, I'm not about to go spooning him, but he tries to spoon me. I tell you, he's anyway. But like so, yeah, and it's the same with like smell. How many times have you smelt like a perfume
hmm
or an aftershave,
Oh yeah, there's there's
right?
there's one perfume, and it's from a girlfriend that a couple of years back, and it just when you get a whiff of it, it
Yeah.
literally sends me back. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I've got one as well, and
Mm,
it's potent. It's a
yeah.
real instant trigger,
Yeah.
right? Good for good or bad, right? So perspective again, always coming back to perspective. So my point is that my understanding of this. I'm not saying to everyone that please listen to me. I don't think I'm not a know-it-all that's saying this is how it is, and blah, blah,
hmm
blah. It's my understanding of how I interpret what I'm talking about, right? So it
hmm
doesn't mean it's right for everyone, but it resonates with me, right? That I feel like sometimes there's a trigger point in our thought process. So one of our senses, like I said about the sight, sound, we've
Yeah.
covered this before.
Yeah.
It's really important that we start to really explore those because we're so desensitized. We need to really learn how to be skillful in our interpretation of our sensory experience.
hmm
Otherwise we're going to walk around in life being hypersensitive,
So
right?
I guess then what's in my head is do you see hypersensitivity as too extreme, or do you see it as someone that's really tuned into how they feel?
Ah, I like this. I like where you're going with this. So yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying. Perception,
Yeah.
right? So I'm really hypersensitive. Always have been. Always will be.
Yeah.
Right? But my act one of my life was I was walking around like life was happening to me. I wasn't really participating in it.
Yeah.
I wasn't connected. I wasn't, dialed into life. It was just happening and I was like a bystander and it was just playing out and I was getting caught up in all of these little kerfuffles along the way
Yeah.
and getting caught up in that. And it was like to my detriment, you know, Captain Blundercluts,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
I write about in my book. So it's like so act two is getting dialed in, tuning in
hmm
to myself, let's look at this hypersensitivity. Let's look at this critical mindset.
mm
Why am I so self-critical of myself, my experience? Why am I so hypersensitive? You know? And you shared beautifully, and thank you for sharing that. It's really honest about your experience as a child.
hmm
And I've got my own version of that, which is not too dissimilar. These strange adult creatures that we co-inhabit with in early life, and this is for everyone. This is for everyone. That's the formative part of your life where you develop hypersensitivity or whatever it is. This is where you're gonna learn how to express yourself for good or bad, if you want to call it that. Now, these strange adult creatures that we co-inhabit with in early life, they are just teaching us what they have got. That's it. And there should never be any blame. I heard it said the other day that, and I love this, that the day you stop blaming your parents for all the bullshit in your life is the day that you actually become an adult yourself and take responsibility for your own fucking emotional world. And it's really true. The day you stop blaming your parents is the day you grow up. And
Yeah.
it's true. So was that relevant what I'm saying? Is this all part
Yeah.
of it? I don't know if I've just jazzed out and gone totally off piece there.
No, I think it is. I think it is. I think there is a when we're talking about hypersensitivity, we're talking about a real attunement to what is going on in the world and what is going on in other people.
Yes.
And hypersensitivity is seen. That's why I asked you that question earlier, because I do think a lot of the time it's seen as a negative. It's like you're being too sensitive, you're being too much, you're being abnormal.
Yeah.
It's that like it's seen as a bad thing.
Mm.
And actually, I think in the world that we work in, we see a lot of people that are hypersensitive
Mm. Yeah.
because they haven't had a lot of safety,
Mm-hmm.
and they are very, very attuned to how people are around them,
Mm-hmm.
the words that are used, even, and I would say probably even more so, is how, just how people are. There's an energy
Mm.
that is almost perceived as soon as anyone walks into a room, as soon as anyone
Mm.
is present. And that hypersensitive is there because the world that they live in is not safe. So to have that hypersensitivity is to be connected into that human energy and understand it as quickly as possible. But it also can be too much in terms of it can overload you,
Mm.
because it's like the meerkats, constantly, there's always one of the meerkats is the meerkats, isn't it? That do the lookouts. That
Yeah, the
there's always,
meerkats, yeah.
yeah, there's always someone there, just like what, checking
Yeah.
out. They're all in there standing
They're
up,
they're
like,
they're off their nut, the
yeah,
meerkats,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
I'm telling you.
And they're all looking like, where's the bird that's going to come in and scoop one of us away?
Yeah.
Where's the predators? And I think that hypersensitivity is there to protect us, but then it turns into an overload. And especially with someone that's not attuned to any emotional understanding, will see it as a negative,
Yeah.
because they'll be like, oh, you're being too much. I
Yeah.
don't get what you're doing at this moment in time. I don't get what your
Mm.
story is. You're just overreacting,
Yeah.
because it's because they see this situation as totally normal, whereas someone else might see it as like, this is blowing my mind.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. I love where this is going. Right. So look, I'm gonna be this is the way I see it, right? So I'm always like throwing a bit of a, you know, a statement. It doesn't mean it's right, it's just my experience, right?
Yeah.
So I've been into psych wards,
Hmm.
right? Yeah. Asylums. I hate that word. It sounds like it's from bloody, you know,
Victorian times, isn't it?
yeah, you know what I mean? But, some people still call them that. Mental institutions, what else? What other terms could they be called? Mental hospitals,
Hmm.
psych wards, right?
Yep.
And people that are in the eyes of certain people in the world, they're fucking Fruit Loops,
Hmm.
absolute nut jobs, right? Yeah, just unhinged, unstable crackpots. Now, of
Hmm.
course, right, I get that, right? I've been in them, so um, not as a patient. I always thought that I was gonna possibly end up in one, which is why, if I'm honest, I never got honest about I never really got honest and real with the true matter of fact that I felt quite unstable mentally.
Mm.
I felt really, hypersensitive
Yeah.
to the world that I was living in. Felt really ill equipped to be in the world and overwhelmed. And, a lot of that was by my own hand, if I'm honest. I, of course, had to navigate some stuff early life, but no blame, no shame. A lot of that has been my doing. I put myself through a lot of shit,
Mm.
because I did. And but when I got real, because the not feeling like I could. share how I felt. I honestly thought, if anyone knew what was going on in my head, they'll lock me up. I mean, every times we had someone say that, it's a classic thought, and I'm not alone here. I think that's one of the greatest um,
Mm.
sort of reflections that a lot of people, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people do sit with that and think, God, if anyone really knew what was going on in my head, they'd think I'm a complete nut job. What goes on behind closed doors. Um, but it's okay, man. Jeez, like abnormal, like that word abnormal. It's silly, isn't it? It's a silly word.
Mm.
In a way, right? I can't say what this book is, and we've said this before, but it's written by a certain class of people, I think. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it doesn't even matter. In terms of class, it's an academic class, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a people that see themselves as the normality.
exactly. Fucking, and they're the nuttiest people I know, right? And like, so, no, I shouldn't say that. We're all bonkers, right? Let's get it real. We're all a bit nuts, right? All humans have the capacity to be completely bonkers, right? I think
Mm.
Einstein said that, right? I don't know. But that's what I'm saying is like the mainstream, like there's certain viewpoints, there's some stigma still to this day attached to this sort of misunderstanding human beings and their behavior and the way they're wired and why are they like that?
Mm.
Why are you like that? Why was I the way I was? Right?
Yeah.
So my point is that going into psych wards and engaging with them people, them wonderful, amazing, precious stones. Like, I'll go back to the precious stones.
Hmm.
They are the most precious stones that they're beautiful, incredible human beings. And they're really hypersensitive. They're just really dialed in. And it's like, you know, I've said it before, they appear to mainstream society to be so dialed out, to be tuned out, completely out there. They're gone. But
Hmm.
but I believe that they're so dialed in that they appear so to be dialed out. They're because they're so hypersensitive. From the ones that I've met, they really feel affected by life. They just couldn't cope,
Yeah.
and they just went completely. Like, it's almost like they had to check out
Yeah.
because this world we live in is so freaking discombobulating to them and intense. It's an intense experience for them, and they've ended up in those sort of places. And I believe that if you just can reach those people, like I know I did, I spoke to, I've done work with these sort of people a lot, and get on a level and connect to the person behind the label of what they are, the abnormality of it all, and you just connect to their beautiful, precious, magnificent stone that they are, then suddenly they come back, they ground, they're with you. Like, I see you, and they're like, I see you. It's like Avatar. So I've had that experience. I know, I'm talking from the experience I've had with these sort of people. And these are seriously hypersensitive people, in my opinion. And I really relate to that.
Mm.
And they've had to use certain things to really sort of make sense of everything. And a lot of the time, there's some chemical element to it, which is just accelerated a psychoactive, reaction to what's already there, which is, they're very fragile. So they kind of just sometimes just fall apart, or it appears that they've just fallen apart completely. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I feel it's almost it's an inability on a large part of humanity to have conversations with people that touch on what is seen as dangerous. Is that the right word? But seen
Yeah.
as uncomfortable probably, let's put it as uncomfortable. It's not dangerous, but
Inconveniencing.
inconvenient. Yeah, I don't want to go there. I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Mm,
So you're talking about it too much. So I'm going to label you as abnormal.
mm,
You are too attuned to
mm,
the uh, vulnerability, unsafeness of the world,
mm.
and I'm gonna put you in a box over there because
Container.
yeah, because I can't cope with that. I Because if I think about it too much, I might fall off as well.
Yeah.
There's that, I can't remember which Radiohead song it is, but there's the video where the guy's just lying on the pavement and everyone's
Oh,
going
yeah.
up to him and asking if he's okay,
Yeah.
and it's just like that's how sometimes how it feels. I'm just gonna curl up in a ball and I'm
Yeah.
gonna lie down.
I've seen
But
that. I mean, you do see that
yeah,
occasionally. People are doing that. Literally, they can't hold it together anymore, and it's a complete just maybe it's a surrender. I don't know.
yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
No, no. I think that yeah, I think it's very, very real, uh, and people don't want to go there. People don't want to have that that conversation. It's too much. You're
Mm.
hypersensitive. You are
I
you,
d-
you're giving me too much, and I'm gonna explode.
Yeah. You're too hypersensitive for my hypersensitivity. That's what it is.
Yeah,
It's like I can't handle the truth, basically.
yeah,
Maybe I
yeah.
don't know.
We are wanting to be like you said, that whatever that normal is, whoever sets that bar of like this is normal and what is neurotypical, and ultimately, like you said, it's all like we're all neurodiverse. There's something going on different in every one of our heads.
Mm,
There are some patterns there and there are some connections, but that I so associate with what you're saying in terms of those times where you think no one gets me, I am mad. I am just no one. Like, if actually anyone understands or could listen to what was going on in my head at this moment in time,
mm.
I'm done.
I still have that.
Yeah.
I still have it. And I used to, as I used to have incessant, debilitating um, dialogue in my head. And I always
Mhm,
say this, it's like it was a committee meeting in my mind. It was like a
mm,
boardroom meeting in my head. And there was sitting around the table was all these different characters shouting over the top of each other. And every single one of them was instructing or plotting my demise. And it was fucking mental. And that's where, you know, chemical enhancement comes in, depending on what you're taking. Drink can suppress it for a bit and, you just check out and get a bit pissed up and, you know, gear, bit of, old nose bag, might accelerate it. I don't know. It's been so long, I can't actually remember. God. But from what I can recall, you know, certain drugs will just, depend on what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be chemicals. There's loads of things we can do to sort of distract ourselves from the noise in our head. And that's where the term getting out your head comes from, isn't it?
yeah.
And he's get out of my head because my head's noisy.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm gonna get out of my head. So for me, it's about getting out of my head now. I need to still get out of my head, but what do I need to get out of my head? Because I don't really feel like it's getting out of my head anymore. But you know what I mean? Getting out of my head without getting absolutely nutted.
Do you Right, so the voices still happen. Yeah, the committee
No,
meeting's
no,
still
n
there.
no, 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 it's not. The commitment is not there. So
No, okay.
what I've done, so let me walk you through it, for anyone listening. So when I got to a point where them voices were telling me, "Just end it,"
Yeah.
You sorry little shit. Just do away with yourself. No one cares.
Mhm.
You know, you're a you're a loser. You know, look at you. You know, that's some of the dialogue that was going on. You know,
Mhm.
some of it obviously was the classic. You're not good enough.
Mhm.
You don't belong. You know, um, it's the pity thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So when that got to a point where I couldn't live with that in my head anymore, and all the I could take whatever chemical, don't matter what it was, none of that was shutting it up. None of it worked. It stopped working. Anyone that's listening, you might relate. You might be where this is at, and if you are, I really encourage you to just try out what I'm about to say, because you don't have to, live with that. There is another way of dealing with it. You don't have to go, well, this is just what it is. And I just thought that those voices were part of who I was.
Mhm.
I didn't understand. I hadn't studied the nature of my mind at this point, that those voices aren't real. That they're just they're not my true nature. They're not my true sense of who I am. This
Mhm.
beautiful, shiny, sparkling, multifaceted, beautiful, magnificent, delicate, wonderful stone that I am. You know? So getting to the point where you know, they call it the gift of desperation, don't they?
Mhm.
I had to act on that, and I always go back to them three options. Just carry on as is. Is this my lot, and I can't change it, and I've just got to get on with it through gritted teeth and hope that one day something will change.
Mhm.
And oh, this woman will fix me.
Mhm.
This holiday will fix it.
Yeah.
This new job will fix it. This amount of money will fix it.
Mhm.
It's endless. Um, the other option was just, yeah, listen to the voices, follow their instruction, end my life,
Mhm.
get out, exit, do it. And the other option was the only other option that I had never done, which was to dare to reach out and get help, ask for help.
Mhm.
And by the grace of something, divine intervention, synchronicity, whatever you want to call it, when the teacher is, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, as they say. And that's what
Mhm.
happened. I was in a place where I suddenly, in my mind, had suddenly opened up to that option of getting help and enter the right person at that time when I became, you know, teachable. And that's when I started to learn. When I started to do all the stuff I always bang on about, that we bang on about, the recover part, recover the person I always was meant to be.
Mhm.
Self discovery, who is that person? Let's find out. Self introspection, there's a lot of stuff going on in my head.
Mm.
And there's a lot of stuff going on in my body that I've numbed out, and I have no idea what's going on. I'm super hypercritical. I'm super hypersensitive. But guess what? I'm walking through my life trying to just make it work. Is it any surprise that I want to kill myself, or that I want to numb myself to avoid having to take accountability and responsibility for what I'm fucking carrying around in my body and my mind? But I'm too
Mhm.
scared to freaking admit it. And I'm too scared to take action on it. So Act Two was doing that,
Mhm.
was just going, do you know what? Surrendering. I can't do this on my own. I've tried. My best thinking and all that stuff has got me to a point where I'm utterly depressed, utterly in despair, hopeless, and lonely and
Mm.
isolated in my mind. I'm a prisoner of my mind, those voices. And I started to get help from people that knew who'd walked the path before me. So
Mhm.
anyone that's listening, if you relate to what I'm talking about, it's for you as well, man. you just gotta you've just gotta make connections. You really have. And if you really feel like you're that alone and there's no way out, then I don't know, man. Like you've just got to find a way. Don't give up. Don't give up. You're a precious stone. You got to shine it, man. Got to shine your stone. That sounds like a dodgy
Yeah,
a
yeah.
dodgy saying for something else, doesn't it? Just gonna
No,
shine
not
my
about
stone.
shining a stone, shining
Um,
too much. Yeah.
but anyway, so yeah, look, learning about. I need to study the workings of my mind. I need to study my emotional landscape. Right? Why is that such a taboo? Are we still in this place where it's such a taboo? It's just not cool. It's not sexy. It's not like, it's not, you know, there's nothing in it for me. What's the point? I'm better off just getting blasted every weekend with my mates
Hmm.
and secretly struggling.
Yeah.
Where's the intelligence in that?
Mm.
Where was my intelligence in that? For I'm grappling with hypersensitivity. I'm super self-critical, but yeah, I'm too afraid to admit it to myself and anyone else. So guess what? I'm gonna continue business as usual. Ask me if I'm all right. Yeah, yeah, I'm wicked, mate. When the reality is, I'm really bloody struggling.
And I think the reality is most people are, but it's easier to carry on and do the things that we've been doing because that's normal. That's the way we work. And to challenge that is really, really difficult. And I I'm really interested about the voices and the way you work in your head. Um, I like for me, I got a handle on my anxiety when I accepted the voice in my head. When I
Mm,
accepted that that voice was going to tell me, you're about to die, you're going to stop breathing, your heart's going to, you know, pound through your chest because it's going so fast. My hands and my feet are all numb, and all I can do is lie on my bed and curl up in a ball. And I'm just praying, like if I just go to sleep and, that
mm,
it'll all be over.
mm,
And for me, it was an acceptance of that was part of me.
mm,
So it wasn't necessarily a denial of that voice. It was saying, okay, I accept this is going to happen. I accept that when certain things happen in my life, and I'm not, that's the thing with anxiety, is it's not always clear. Like I can't name as a kid, I can name the occasions, I can name the AIDS advert that
mm.
scared the shit out of me. As an adult, I can't always tell you what it is that has scared me shitless. I can't always tell you why I'm feeling fearful, why I'm feeling hypersensitive. All I know is that, 11 o'clock at night, suddenly I feel like I'm going to die. Suddenly my heart has decided to beat at 180 beats per minute and I'm struggling to breathe. And I can't tell you that, oh, this happened today, and that's why I'm feeling like that. But what I've now got to a point is I accept that that is how I feel. And because I've accepted it, I can now move beyond it. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, this is what's happening. This is
Mm,
my body doing something. Why is it doing it? I
mhm,
don't know. I've had a particularly stressful week. Has something happened this week? And it won't be one key event.
mm,
It'll be a build up of things,
mm.
you know, especially now, as an adult, I'm dealing with so much more complex things than I was as a kid. But it's just accepting that and going, okay, this is how I feel.
Mm,
And I probably need to realize that I might need to go and do some stuff. I might need to go and do some exercise. I might need to go and do some breathing. I might do some meditation. I might need to look at actually, has it been a bad week and have I been ignoring it all and just suppressing and burying and ignoring those voices going, you're finding this really, really hard.
yeah, yeah.
And I think, yeah, I think that was the breakthrough moment for me, although I still can't fly. Still can't get I think that's rational. I think it's rational to not cope with the fact that I'm flying in a metal container miles up in the sky.
You can do it. I
I
promise
can
you.
do yeah,
You
yeah,
can.
I
You
will do
can.
it. I will do it,
I'll
but
take a flight with you. We'll go for a fly somewhere.
okay. But yeah, everything else, it still happens. There's still moments where I'm like, I
Mm.
can feel it. It's coming. I had one really bad one last summer
Mhm.
in a situation where I was like, I'm completely, I felt looking back at it now, I felt unsafe.
Mm.
I felt unsafe. I'd gone on a silent retreat and
10-day.
10-day
Yeah, yeah,
silent retreat. Hadn't spoken to anyone for 5 days, and I was in this dorm with 7 other guys.
yeah,
And about 11:30 at night, my heart just went ballistic, and I'm just there, and I thought I was stuck because I'm like, I can't speak to anyone. These are all strangers. I met them 5 days ago, and we haven't talked because we can't.
yeah,
And it was like, and of course, in my head, this was like no panic attack or anxiety I've ever had before. This was different, and this was
mhm,
definitely the end. This was definitely me like having a proper heart attack, and that was it. I'm gone. And I went next day after I calmed myself down. Took about 2 hours of walking around outside in pitch black in the middle of this
in
countryside
your pants,
in my pants.
and we're talking about British pants, not American
Yeah, yeah,
pants.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just trying to find what works for me is sensitivity. So if I can get outside and it's cold, and it was
yeah,
summer, but it was the temperature had dropped, and I could breathe, and I managed to sort my head out.
yeah,
And yeah, you could speak to the teacher at a
yeah,
certain point the next day, or every day. And I said to him, I had this horrendous panic attack, and I haven't had one for ages, and he just went, "Yeah, that's good. That's good. That means you're working through stuff. It
yeah,
means that it's all coming out. All this trauma and all this
yeah,
anxiety, it's all coming out of you. All your hypersensitivity is being triggered by the
yeah,
fact that you're not talking and just focusing on you."
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "But that doesn't help if I have another panic attack tonight." And he was like, "Yeah, but you can call me. You can find me." And I said, "What, at 2 in the morning?" And he was like, "Yeah, 24/7, I'm here." And he was one of those people that just had that aura of just
Mhm.
absolute safety and calmness.
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh, okay." And of course, the next day, he, of course, I had a panic attack, and but I knew he was there, so it was safe, and I just breathed myself through
yeah,
it. So
yeah,
it was
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
See, I'm very well versed in panic attacks. It's a lot. And last one I had was I think it was 3 years ago, and it was because I'd had a major operation. So it was actually induced by the in my opinion the operation.
Right.
It was quite a traumatic operation. Where I had to have my whole wrist. I had like 12 bolts put in it and a metal plate. It was off the back of me breaking it, snapping it, skating. And yeah, I had this mad panic attack at like 4 in the morning. Where it's because my nerve blockers weren't wearing off, and I think the male nurse gave me too much of a high dose of nerve blocker because they said I'd get the feeling back in my arm within like 12 hours of post op, and it had been bloody ages, and I still couldn't, and I thought I was having a blood clot in my hand. I started to overthink it, and I started to go into like a full panic attack. And I was on the phone to the, dialed for an ambulance to say, look, can you send can you get someone out? I'm having a proper wobble here. I'm finding it hard to breathe. I'm having a full on panic attack, and I basically think it's been triggered by the fact that I think I've got like a blood clot in my fingers, in my wrist, like they're going purple. So it was warranted. I was really, and I was on my own. I was freaking out. And it took about 2 hours for the ambulance to come. But annoyingly, this is around about COVID. COVID was still a thing. And they were bloody annoyingly, they were running through a COVID checklist on the phone, seeing if checking that I didn't have COVID. I'm like, I assure you, this isn't fucking COVID, man. Like, and so that was the last time I had one. It really sort of wasn't pleasant to have one because I hadn't had one for years
Mm.
previously. Um, I'd had a terror attack up a high mountain range, but I think that was warranted because it was bloody high up,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was. I feel like there's rational and irrational,
Mm.
and that's getting back to the mind and that retreat you was on. We could say it for Vipassana, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's a real. Anyone that doesn't know what Vipassana is, it's my understanding of this, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, is a moment to moment observation of what is.
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah,
It's about not judging your experience.
yeah,
So whatever comes up is, and you just
yeah,
let it be.
yeah.
And I've studied Vipassana myself, and I really think it's for anyone that's listening. There's something in what we're talking about here. Excuse me. There really is. There's something in what we're talking about. This is for everyone. This is, in my opinion, the life hack. This is the life hack, and it doesn't cost any money. It might cost you a book to study it. It might cost you a retreat to study it. It might cost you, an air flight to go somewhere to, I don't know, the Himalayas and go and sit in an ashram to study it or practice it. Or like you went on a retreat not million miles away, and you can
Mhm.
still access that stuff. But in my opinion, Vipassana and what it represents is the life hack.
Yeah.
It is the ability to understand your mind and your experience as it happens, including hypersensitivity. And what you will understand by practicing this and the awareness you'll gain is that hypercritical mind, which we all have,
Mhm.
yeah, pecking away, going, dut, 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 dut. Should be doing this. Oh, we didn't do that. Oh, you got to do that tomorrow. Oh,
Mhm.
but what about what they said? Oh, fuck, and I didn't say that. And oh God, I've got to do that thing and blah 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 blah, blah, right? That stuff plays out. And like you said to me, are those voices, is that commitment in your mind still there? No, it's not. There's still mild whispers and voices that come in the back door and sometimes try and have a little chat with me. And not all of it is great. But I've learned, like what I'm talking about, like you, I've started to study and practice. I'm not a master of it, don't know it all, but I know enough.
Mhm.
I've got some tools
Yeah.
which are on offer to everyone. We've all got this, right? This is where it's at. In layman terms, meditation. It's like have a meditative mind. Learn to do it. Oh, I can't do it. My head's too noisy. Fucking exactly. Your head's too fucking noisy. Right? So don't just sit there. I get it. I was one of them. I sit there and go, I can't do it. My head's too noisy. I can't do it. That's the fucking point. You're always going to have that noisy head until you
Mhm.
learn to sit with it. Vipassana. Whatever comes up, let it be. Don't get in the way of it. Don't attach to it. It will pass.
Mhm.
Sit. If you sit long enough, you'll observe the nature of the way it works. And you can start to use certain practices to develop and cultivate a different response. So some of them voices that are in that committee meeting plotting your demise, you can start to switch them out for gentler, more skillful, more nurturing dialogues. And there's obviously a little bit of work involved in that. It's not easy, and you've got to apply it, and you've got to have a lot of discipline. But the more you practice this stuff, the more the volume, which let's use Spinal Tap volume 11 out of 10 on the dial.
Yep.
You can dial that down to like a 2.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. It's, so it's not controlling your every freaking thought or emotion or response to life.
Yeah.
Very passionate about this stuff because, I've done a bit of work around this stuff and I still have to apply it and I don't always get it right. I have to use positive affirmations to replace, and I've said it on here before, there was a time when I did it every single day religiously, and I still do it frequently, often, most days, but, I don't get it right. Some days, I just don't do it, whatever. But it's as good as doing it as often as I possibly can, frequently. And some days it is like literally day to day I do it. And if you put that kind of dedication into it, how much do you care about your mindset? How much do you care about your well-being? How much do you care about the way you feel? You know, do you feel that it's worth polishing your stone enough? That really does sound like something else,
Yeah,
doesn't
it really does sound like a
it?
bad euphemism, but, no, but it
um,
is it's that recognition of yourself. It's that recognition of how much do you value yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, when you are hypersensitive to everything that is going on around you, quite often that presents as negatively in your own head, I think. It's
Mm,
too much. I'm not good enough, as you've used that before. But I think there is that sort of sensation of not being enough, not being normal, being abnormal,
mm,
and thinking that because of that, yeah, I'm not worth it. So I'm not going to do the things that I know are good for me. I'm
mm,
literally going to self-sabotage. I'm gonna keep smoking whatever. I'm gonna keep drinking whatever. I'm gonna
mm,
keep losing myself in relationships that I know are no good for me,
mm.
having no boundary, all of those things that we do as human beings, getting caught in the drama of life because that gives us little hits of whatever serotonin, you know.
Yeah.
It's not serotonin, that's the one that makes you fall asleep.
Dopamine.
Dopamine,
Dopamine.
that's a dopamine hits. And just making you, yeah, just that's how you get through life. It's just those little spikes,
Mm,
and you go up, you come down, you go up, you come down, and trying to find a middle line through it is
mm.
really tricky.
Yeah. Um, we live in a trend. I always go back to this. We live in a trend where, if it don't cost money, it's nothing. It can't be of value. What's the
Mm,
catch? What's the catch? And it's this, what I was just saying, what we're talking about, it really doesn't cost any money to just learn how to center yourself, ground yourself so that you can bring the dial down from hyper to moderate.
yeah. I mean,
Right.
that Vipassana 10-day silent retreat doesn't cost anything because that's part of the tradition. Is
Yeah.
you can make donations
Yeah.
afterwards, and they actually would rather you make donations in terms of service and you go back and you
Yeah.
work at one for free.
Yeah.
But you know, that in itself is a um,
Absolutely.
free tool. I mean, it's intense. Like, not many,
Yeah.
anyone I've spoken to about it is like, you did 10 days of what?
Yeah.
you know, uh, but it definitely, definitely gives you a pretty big insight into who you are and what's going on for you at that time.
You have to face yourself.
Yeah.
You have to face yourself in meditation.
Mm.
And, I'm only talking about this like, I'm not like putting myself above anyone by saying, oh, yeah, I know about this stuff and I apply it and look at my life and it's amazing. It's like, this is for everyone. It really is. Like, it's for
Mm.
everyone. I personally believe they should be rolling this out in schools. Yeah, from a very young age. I feel like they should be learning to just be. And what does that feel like? And let's discuss what it feels like to just be. Let's land and do a body scan, right? Classic, you know, entry level meditation for young people. Right, Billy, how does it feel just to sit and close your eyes and what's your body doing? How do you feel in your body, Billy? Yeah? Is there any do you feel any tension in your shoulders? You know? Does your head, does your head feel comfortable or is it feeling tight? Stuff like that. Oh no, miss, I feel really sad. Okay, let's explore that. You're opening up a can of worms and they're not, am I right in saying this? Because you're a head teacher, not equipped at this point in the framework of schools. They can't do that.
I think that PSHE, life skills, uh, sexual health, all of that is absolutely uh, neglected.
Mm,
And I think my experience, and I'm sorry, I know there are people out there, and I have met practitioners who are incredible at delivering that kind of work, but it's seen as the poor relative to your English and maths and
yeah.
foreign languages and
Mm,
history and whatever else. So it's almost in a lot of schools, it feels like, oh, this maths teacher's got 4 free periods, so they can teach PSHE as well.
yeah, yeah.
And that person then resents having to teach that. They're not skilled in that. That's not what they're there for. Um, so I think it's, yeah, that's how I feel about it at the moment. Is that it needs skillful people. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's like, when we first met, you came into school and you could give an experience, a gravitas to what you were talking about, and kids could see it was real. So they would listen to you and they'd buy in. And it's very difficult, I think, for teachers to step over that line and go, actually, this is my experience in life. These are the things that I've done. You can't do that because then the kids are like, well, you're real in a way. There's a very it's like kids need to see teachers as
Yeah.
they go in the cupboard at the end of the day and then come back out the next morning to teach them.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Is how it feels.
You don't want to see your teacher out of school. If you see your teacher out of school, it's freaking horrific
Yeah.
sort of
And
thing. Yeah.
and it's like it's also the same ways you're not allowed to see that teachers have a life
Yeah.
and are human beings and have made mistakes, and it's almost like you've got to be superhuman to teach.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's all you teach is history, so that's all that's all you know, sort of thing. And I just think that what's happening at the moment is we have a computer in our pocket that gives us you know uh, access to all this information about mental health, about general health, about living in the world, and it's
Mm.
and it's not always put in a skillful way. It's not always presented by people that are skillful. And so what happens is kids take what they want from it and take what they need at that point, but they're not taught it in a way that enables them to actually um, grow. I
Mm.
think it's that growth thing, which I mentioned earlier. It limits them in a way because it's like it's an excuse,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's when you woke anti-woke people come online and go, well, they're just saying they've got ADHD, or they're just saying because they've read about it online, or they've got this condition because they've
Mm.
so and so's got it on Instagram. And you know they might have seen some, they might well have that, they might well have found some familiarity with someone, but
Mm.
it's not been taught, they've not been enabled to actually understand what that might mean,
Yeah.
and then how they can grow from it.
Yeah. So I got a theory, right? And it I'm not the only one. I speak to loads of people about this. So in the school curriculum, you learn about how to count,
Hmm.
maths, or in America, math, right? Um, so you learn about how to calculate, right?
Hmm.
You learn how to talk, speak in a
Hmm.
proper way, if that's whatever proper way is. I'm
Hmm.
not sure I ever embraced it properly. I'm still learning how to speak properly. Um, and articulate myself. We're taught other languages, right?
Mhm.
Um, whether we feel we need to or not. We're taught the history of the world, which is debatable to, you know, the content we receive, whether that's actually going to serve us. We're taught about the world, geography. We're taught about, I don't know if RE, religious education, is still a thing in schools. I'm not
Yep,
sure.
very much so.
Okay. Why? I find it bizarre. Why are we not taught about the subject matter of how to be a human?
Mhm.
It doesn't make sense to me. They just assume that the school's response has always been, well, it's not our responsibility to teach kids that. It's for the home,
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
And the reality is, come on, man, freaking hell. If you've got, you know, the Dalai Lama and, you know, his equivalent, you know, as your parents, you got the edge. Do you know what I mean?
Is the Dalai Lama allowed to have children?
He's probably got a couple of rattling around somewhere, isn't he? I don't know.
Don't
Am
know.
I allowed to even say that? I don't know. I'm only joking. I'm joking. I don't know. I
Is he
don't
like the
know.
Pope? He's not allowed to have.
Well, I know some. I don't know, but I know the Buddhist community that I studied from. Um, I and some of the teachers that I really got so much from. And I'm not Buddhist. I just love their philosophy and the way that they use meditation and everything we've been talking about basically
Mm,
to understand how to be a human.
yeah.
Basic, for me that is like the that's the thing that I really could have done with, forget bloody history at school or
Woodwork.
all of that stuff. If they had taught me all the stuff that I had to find later in life, maybe things would have been very different. Hey ho. Anyway, but some of the teachers that I know that have got a monastic life and lived that path as a Buddhist monk talk about their family that they've
Mm.
given up. So I don't know whether Dalai Lama has or not. I don't know. But anyway, point being is that that's the schools, the education boards, the curriculum, the whoever, the governing board for education's outlook on who takes accountability for the teaching of young people to be human.
Mhm.
And it doesn't land with them. Their job is to teach them the academics that will better equip them for life. But it doesn't make sense to me because none of that stuff really gets you anywhere. Well, materially it does, but it doesn't really get you anywhere spiritually if you can't navigate your emotional and mental state of affairs, your experience. And the hypersensitivity, there's a bunch of young people sitting in school classrooms that got hypersensitivity ramped up off the hook and hypercritical, you know, their hypercritical experience is off the chain.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it really doesn't. But
No, I think it's.
maybe, sorry, just quick, maybe that's what I say. My theory is maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Because if everyone's dialed in and really connected to, a real strong foundation of spiritual experience of being a human, being really connected to source, to their higher self, right? And they're authentic, really, really dialed into it. With that comes a lot of power.
Yeah.
And what I mean by power is, an inner strength and a mindset that doesn't necessarily follow what's being told. Because what you learn, and what I've got from it, is you learn to be more curious. Don't believe what people tell you. Always question and find out for yourself through direct experience. Now, if everyone had that mindset, it would be a fucking riot. in in the eyes it wouldn't. That's the irony, it wouldn't, but only certain people would think it's a riot. Like, it would be people would just have authenticity, more integrity, you know, you'd map out a path that doesn't necessarily follow a certain, you know.
I
Do you know what I mean by that?
yeah, someone yesterday literally said it would be fucking anarchy. He said he said the anarchy is actually getting to know yourself, and that's what society doesn't want you to do.
Of course
And
not.
when I say society, I mean your academics, your leaders, your people that want us to remain uh,
Numpties.
numpties, numb, unknowing,
Yeah,
um, yeah, not conscious. Because if we were conscious, we might stop buying as much of the crap that they sell.
exactly that. So, revolution of the heart, people, you know, getting to know yourself, go inward, meditate. Don't be scared, right? I wasn't being harsh, I was just being very direct earlier, right? I used to sit and I thought, oh my God, this is really hard. I can't do this. Hang in there, stick with it, break through, break through, right? There's going to be times, I still have this where I may sit in a meditative state, and usually it's sitting by the ocean on a rock, right? In a really nice
Mhm.
spot. I'm very lucky to be able to do that. And I don't necessarily need to close my eyes and go inwards, you know? I just it does it's not all about going inwards. You can go inwards by having your eyes open, you know? Connection to the moment, right here, right now. What's happening with my five senses and grounding and dialing into being centered in myself. Do a body scan. How do I feel right now? What does it feel like to be here, right now? You know, what does it sound like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What's going on in my body? Right? And just relax into that, man. And then go to your breath. And if you haven't got a relationship with your breath, get one. Start to learn how to just, you know, connect to your breath because it's a beautiful, beautiful, powerful part of your existence.
That for me is one of the craziest things I've learned over the past few years. Is something that we take as absolutely the most natural thing that we do in the whole world
Yeah.
is to breathe in and out. Is that actually well, the majority of us are pretty crap at it.
Just holding our breath.
Yeah.
Just hoping for something to relieve us from the stress of our lives. So it's like take a deep breath and center yourself, ground,
Mm.
learn to breathe properly, learn to follow the rhythm of your breath, learn to follow the rhythm of your body, learn to follow the rhythm of your life.
And I think it's a really important thing you're saying. But I would caveat it with the idea that when the student is ready, the teacher appears,
Yeah.
and we all need teachers.
Mhm.
And there's not a maths teacher, it's not a history teacher. It's we need
This is coming from a head teacher.
this has come from a head teacher. We need people in our lives that are going to teach us
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and show us, because I know from my own experience, it wasn't till other people come into my life and show me these things that I can make that transition and make that choice.
Yeah,
Because otherwise, I'm just listening to the teachers in my head, which are all these voices telling me you're not good enough, you can't
yeah,
do this, yeah, it's never going to stop,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's all going to go wrong, and it's you need those external voices, those external teachers, those wise people,
Mhm.
and yeah, and I think that wisdom is a little bit lost at the moment.
I freaking love that. That's poetic what you just said. That's coming from a head teacher saying, Get rid of all your teachers, people. No, he's Ben, Mr. Rice, you're not saying that. He's not saying that. I love what you just said. Right. And that's been my experience because those voices in your head are going to be voices that are familiar because you've been with them for a long time,
Mhm.
possibly. And some of those voices might be, Mr. Bore from school. They might be a parent. They might be some friends. They might be certain people along the way, an old boss. They could be an ex-partner. They could be someone who you used to watch on TV. Who knows? These voices that play on loop. We've got to replace them, man. So I love what you just said. That was my experience, 100%. Act two only happened when I was, ready.
Yeah.
Gift of
Yeah.
desperation. Do you know what? Maybe it's not painful enough yet, but when it gets painful enough, just be open to, if you're anything like me and them three options, carry on, flatline through life. This is my lot. B, contemplate an exit. Or C, when you're ready, you know, teachers are out there, they're not going anywhere. These senseis, I like to call them, you know, they're not going anywhere. There's loads of them out there. There's some questionable ones, but there's some really, use your, go your gut feeling. Does it feel right? Maybe you don't know, but hopefully you'll have a strong sense of, yeah, this feels right. This person feels that they're the right person. And when you are ready and you do want it, and prepare to be challenged, because a good teacher will challenge you on everything you know, everything you think you know.
Mm.
Um, don't know if I'm repeating myself, but I part of my journey was learning some Tai Chi, right? Uh, Learned to meditate, learned to do a bit of yoga, and then I thought, throw a bit of Tai Chi into the mix.
Mhm.
And he gave me three instructions. First one was forget everything. Second one was follow instruction. Third one was have fun.
Mhm.
And I was like, I really like that. And I really got what he meant. Shut the fuck up, basically, was the first one. The second one was pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm your sensei. You're the student. Know your place.
Mhm.
So get rid of your fucking ego and your pride. Be humble. Beginner's mind. And the last one I really liked. Just don't take it too seriously, man. Have a fucking laugh. And he was a great teacher, and I learned a lot from him. And it wasn't all Tai Chi. I learned a lot from him. Very, very wise man. So yeah, when we're ready to change things, this is the thing, perception. Are you choosing to be stuck, or are you going to choose to snap out of it and change your perception from I'm a victim, poor me, this is just, it is what it is, I can't change, to I really want to do it. Let's do it. I'm ready. And when that happens, it's a beautiful, beautiful journey, man.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I think people seek wisdom in the wrong places at this moment in time,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of wisdom out there in the public eye. There's a lot of noise and a lot of shouting and a lot of negativity, and if we get pulled into that, then we get um, consumed by it, and it all becomes too much. And
And
it's really important, as you just said, to find the right teachers.
yeah. And there's always going to be some fear, and trust is a big one.
Yeah, yeah, it's huge.
It's hard to trust people, and when you've got a load of reasons to not trust people. So if you're hypersensitive,
Yeah.
so all right, man. Well, look, covered a lot. I feel like we could easily go more into this because this is it's a real big one. This I feel.
Mm.
How are you feeling with this?
Yeah, I think we've reached a natural conclusion there. But with all of these ones, yeah, I feel like we could go on, but we'll
Yeah.
leave that for season 2. So when we come back,
Okay. So how do you feel that went?
I thought it was a really interesting conversation. I was slightly distracted because I light a candle every time we do one of these conversations, and it got to the bottom, and the glass exploded halfway through.
Ooh.
So yeah, I've got sort of a leaking candle and glass everywhere.
Sounds like it was a hypersensitive
Yeah,
situation.
yeah, I was feeling very sensitive to that. Yeah, but no, I think that's really some really important information there, and really important conversation. So it was good.
Yeah.
How was it
It's a
for you?
deep one. Yeah. No, I mean it's. I think there's so much more. We've really landing on the hypersensitivity, but the hypercritical part of it,
Mhm.
I feel like we covered a lot of that. I feel like we covered 2 there.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's a good one. Good one.
always, always.
Feels good. Feels good to be part of this, man. Really does. Always take away from it.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah, yeah.
Okay then, Mr.
Right,
West.
Mr. Noble, have a good week, and I'll
Hmm.
speak to you again in 7 days.
Yeah. Ta-ta for now.
See you later.
Bye bye.